Hello, and welcome to the Nevada Public Library's Global Explorers program. Today, we are looking at the state of Alaska and its biggest sporting event, which took place earlier this month, the Iditarod. To start, we'll read the book, If You Were a Kid at the Iditarod. Let's take a look. If You Were a Kid at the Iditarod by Josh Gregory, illustrated by Kelly Kennedy. A race like no other. Each year in early March, Alaska holds its biggest, most thrilling sporting event, the Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race. Dozens of the world's top mushers gather in Alaska's biggest city, Anchorage. They bring their team of specially trained sled dogs. Soon, they will set off on an epic race across the state's rugged wilderness. Riding on sleds behind their hardworking dogs, they will cross more than 900 miles, 1,448 kilometers of rough terrain. The weather will be cold and snowy. The journey will take more than 8 days for even the fastest teams. Imagine you were a kid in Alaska during the Iditarod. You would get an up-close look at this one-of-a-kind event. Turn the page to set off on an amazing adventure through the Alaskan wilderness. You will find out what it takes to make it to the end of the Iditarod Trail. Meet Maggie. Maggie Williams lives with her family in a small Alaskan town. Mushing is a big part of their lives. Maggie's dad used to race in the Iditarod every year. Now the family runs a business that takes people on sled dog tours and gives mushing lessons. This year, they are getting back into the big race. Maggie's older sister Laura has been training for several years. Now Laura is going to compete in the Iditarod for the first time. Meet Alex. Alex is Maggie's cousin. He lives in Florida and is visiting Alex to see the race. His cousins visit him in Florida almost every year, but this is his first time in Alaska. He has never seen snow before. Alex is a little worried that the weather will be too cold for him. Still, hanging out with Maggie will be fun. So will cheering on Laura in the race. Alex set his bags down in the guest room. He was excited to be in Alaska, but he couldn't stop shivering. "Come on," Maggie said. "I'll give you a tour. You can even meet the dogs." "I don't know if I'm ready to go back outside," Alex replied. "I'm freezing just from walking between the car and the house." Maggie rolled her eyes and handed him a heavy coat. Then she grabbed his arm and led him to the door. Maggie took Alex to the dog kennels. She led him from one dog to the next. She stopped near a dog with black fur and blue eyes. "This is Shadow," she said, petting the dog. "He's my favorite. I've helped raise him since he was a puppy. He's still young, but he's very fast." She walked over to another dog with red and white fur. "This is Max," she said. "He's the lead dog of Laura's team." Alex laughed as Shadow licked his face. "I can't wait to see them run," he said. The whole family went to Anchorage on Saturday morning. The race's ceremonial start was this day. It wasn't the real race. It was a day people could get a close look at the teams. The real race would start the next day. Crowds of excited spectators lined the city streets. Alex shivered as he pointed toward the starting line. "There's Laura," he said. "The mushers and their dogs look so cool." One by one, the mushers started racing down the street. They took off a couple of minutes apart. As Laura passed by, she high-fived Alex and Maggie from her sled. The next afternoon, everyone gathered in the tiny town of Willow. It was time for the real start of the race. The wind was strong and the snow was falling fast. It formed big piles called snowdrifts. "Is it always this snowy?" Alex asked. He pulled his hood over his head. "Actually, no," Maggie replied. "This is pretty crazy weather. It's almost a blizzard." "I hope the dogs will be up to the challenge," her dad added. Maggie and Alex were glued to the computer for the next few days. They followed the latest race news closely. They cheered each time Laura reached a checkpoint. Maggie's dad was paying close attention to the race too. One morning he had an idea. "Let's fly out to the next checkpoint in my plane," he said. "We can see Laura as she passes through." Alex could hardly believe his ears. "You have an airplane?" he asked excitedly. "Wow," Alex said as he climbed out of the small plane. "This is really the middle of nowhere." "Yep," Maggie agreed. "The trail goes through some really remote areas." Maggie's dad led them to a spot where they could see the action. They watched as several mushers passed by. Finally, Maggie pointed off in the distance. "There she is!" she yelled, but a worried look soon came to her face. "Why is Max running like that?" she asked. "Something is wrong." A veterinarian at the checkpoint took a close look at Max. Maggie and Alex watched from a distance. "I don't think Max is going to be finishing the race," Maggie said. Her dad nodded. "I think you're right. He'll be coming with us when we leave." "But what will Laura do without her lead dog?" Alex asked. "One of the other dogs will have to take over," Maggie answered. Maggie and Alex watched as Laura set off on the icy trail. Alex pointed out that a black dog was leading the team. It's Shadow, Maggie yelled. He's an interesting choice for the lead position, said her dad. He doesn't have Max's experience. That's true, Maggie replied, but I know he can do it. A few days later, the whole family went to Nome. They wanted to see the mushers cross the finish line. A little more than 8 days had passed. Suddenly, a siren blasted through the town. Alex jumped in surprise. What's that? He yelled. Don't worry, Maggie said with a laugh. That happens whenever a team is close to finishing. They watched as several teams came rushing into town that afternoon. It was starting to get dark. There was still no sign of Laura. Finally, the siren rang again. Maggie and Alex started cheering when they recognized Laura. Shadow was at the front of the team. He was running as fast as the wind. The family rushed to greet Laura as she crossed the finish line. You did it, Maggie shouted as she hugged her sister. Laura looked tired but excited. I'm a long way from first place, Laura replied, but I'll be back here next year to try again. I can't wait to see it, said Alex. This was so much fun that I stopped noticing how cold it is. And now we move on to our 5 facts section, giving you more information about Alaska's epic race. Fact number 1. Since its start in 1973, times to complete the race have gotten much faster. The first winner took about 20 days to complete the race. Now, winners can complete the race in under 9 days, and the last place finishers usually complete the race in about 13 days. Fact number 2, the last place finisher gets a prize known as the Red Lantern, referencing the tradition of keeping a lantern lit in town until all known travelers had arrived safely. The Red Lantern is now a prize receivers take proudly. For finishing the 1,000-mile track over snow and ice is no small feat. Number 3, the closest finish was in 1978. After 14 days, 18 hours, 52 minutes, and 24 seconds, Dick Mackey finished 1 second ahead of Rick Swenson. The winner was decided by the nose of the lead dog across the finish line. Fact number 4, depending upon factors such as size and type, house dogs that are pets need to eat anywhere from a couple hundred to 1,500 calories a day. Sled dogs in the Iditarod, however, need approximately 10 to 12,000 calories a day. And finally, the Iditarod commemorates the relay made by several sled dog teams in 1925 to deliver the diphtheria antitoxin to the town of Nome during an outbreak. Though the lead dog of the final team, Balto, received much of the fame for the feat, including the 1995 animated movie Balto, it was another dog, Togo, who led the longest and most difficult stretch of the journey. His story is told in Disney's 2019 movie bearing his name. And now it's time for our craft, where today we're going to be making our own dog sleds out of craft sticks. So to begin, we've got the craft sticks here, and I'm going to line 4 of them up right here to form the base of what will be the sled. And then going to take one more and cut it in half using scissors, and it shouldn't be too difficult. They should cut without much problem. And we're going to connect our 4 here for our base by gluing the extra one here to what will be the bottom of our sled. So putting glue here on this half, and then gluing it perpendicular to the ones on our base, so that way it will connect them. Kind of try to straighten them up here. And do the same thing with the other half to hold them together better. If you need more connections for your base, you can cut other craft sticks in half and glue them to the base, but I'm just gonna move forward with just the 2 here. And so, like I said, this is gonna be the bottom of the sled eventually when we're all done. But once you get your connections glued in. And then once you're done with gluing your base together, go ahead and put a little bit more glue on the opposite sides of these connecting pieces. And we're going to glue the actual part of the sled that is on the ground, the skis or whatever part you call them. And when you glue these two pieces on, you want a little bit of them to hang off the far end of the base. And I'll show you here once we flip it over why that is. So once you've got them on, you can flip it over carefully since the glue hasn't dried yet. And you can see that this is going to be the actual like base of the sled, and here is going to be where the musher stands. He's got to have some part of the sled to stand on, so he stands there. And then with a couple more craft sticks that we need to cut in half again. And actually I already have another one cut in half here, so I'll grab that. We'll make the back part of the sled. We're going to glue the sticks just like this. All right, if you're having trouble getting your back end correct, know that here I went ahead and added a craft stick along the back here to hold them together, and then also one right up front here to help with stability, but then also this next part will help hold it together. We're going to take a craft stick and glue it on the edge here, one on each side, like so. So that should help the back stay up even before the glue dries here. And once you have the sides on your sled, the basic structure is complete. But to add a few finishing touches, I'm going to grab some pipe cleaner here and some tape and put a handle on the back for the musher to hang on to, as well as a strand here to help keep supplies actually on the sled. And then when you are complete, you'll have your own Iditarod dog sled. That's all we have for today. Thank you for joining me. I hope you learned something and had fun, and I will plan to see you next time.